First up, we head to Weatherford, Texas, where a camera keeps watch on an inmate holding cell in the basement of the Parker County District Courthouse. Those inside are awaiting court appearances upstairs. At his post on the edge of the camera's view is a lone guard, 52-year-old Gary Grimm. Like most days, Grimm chats up a few inmates from his chair. It's a typical shift for him, right until it isn't. Grimm is just slumped over in his chair. Immediately, an inmate recognizes something's wrong. Then the entire holding cell takes notice. While Grimm lies motionless, the inmates break free. His firearm now up for grabs. The inmates have a golden opportunity to escape, attack, or even harm the guard. Instead, they decide to help. They bang on the walls and yell, desperately trying to get someone's attention. Eventually, courthouse officers hear the commotion and rush in. The officers order the inmates back into the holding cell, call for backup, and then check Grimm's vitals. He has no pulse. Another officer enters and begins chest compressions. Minutes later, an emergency medical team arrives. When additional chest compressions don't work, the EMTs apply a defibrillator patch to his chest.
Stand clear. Shock delivered.
The jolt restarts Grimm's heart, and he's rushed to the hospital, having just suffered a massive heart attack. Gary Grimm would recover and go on to publicly thank the inmates who not only spared his life, but likely saved it.
My God, take me home.
We now go to Brimfield Township, Ohio, where County Judge Rebecca Doherty isn't presiding over her courtroom. She's making demands at the local police station.
Do me a favor and have a seat so we can do our job. I'm not going to call anybody yet. Okay, we have stuff we have to do.
I'm going to tell you now to call Lieutenant Limbert now.
Have a seat.
Call him.
Or I'm going to put you in the cell.
So why is this judge so aggravated? Let's go back earlier in the night.
Hello?
An officer's body camera records as he approaches an SUV that's crashed off the side of a snow-covered road.
Are you okay?
No, I'm not.
What's going on? Ma'am, you've got vomit down here on your door. 300 deal. Have you been drinking?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have your ID handy?
I'm Becky Doherty. I'm the judge.
Your judge?
To be more specific, she is the county's common pleas court judge, 55-year-old Rebecca Doherty.
Kidding me?
Am I kidding about what?
I am absolutely out of my mind.
You're intoxicated.
I am so intoxicated.
The officer's body cam continues to record as the judge is escorted into booking.
Oh my God, take me home. Okay.
Have a seat.
Let me call Limbert.
Have a seat.
No.
Rebecca, listen, this whole thing is being recorded. Do not do something you are going to regret tomorrow.
Larry Limbert, actually Major Larry Limbert of the county sheriff's office.
Do me a favor and have a seat so we can do our job. I'm not going to call anybody yet. Okay, we have stuff we have to do. Will you please have a seat? You're trying to walk out the door and you're almost falling down. Can you please have a seat?
I'm not falling down.
Have a seat.
Call Larry Limbert.
Rebecca, I will put you in one of the cells if you do that. I'm
call
trying
Larry
really
Limbert
quick.
now.
Stop being volunteer watches, get on. You shut your damn mouth, sir. Oh, I'm not going to shut my mouth. Next time, I'm going to have you gagged. Have me gagged.
I'm going to tell you one more time. Sit down.
I'm going to tell you now.
We're back in Brimfield Township, Ohio, where earlier this county judge, Rebecca Doherty, crashed on the side of a snowy road.
Ma'am, you've got vomit down here in your door. 300 deal. Have you been drinking?
Yes.
Okay.
Now at the local police station, she continues to make demands, including asking them to call an officer from a completely different police department.
Call Lieutenant Limbert now.
Have a seat.
Call
Or I'm going to
now.
put you in the cell. Have
Put
a
me
seat.
in the cell. Put me in the cell. Call him now.
Have a seat.
Call him now. Call him now.
And that's not the judge's only request.
What can I do for you?
Drink.
Okay.
Water.
We just literally told you 10 seconds ago that we're getting you a drink of water. He's out front right now getting you the glass.
Not 10 seconds ago. I want a drink of water now. Thank you. Call Larry Limbert.
I tried him. He didn't answer.
Really?
Do you want the water? The
Yeah,
water?
I do.
Okay.
Larry Limbert.
Okay.
Larry Limbert.
After refusing to take a breathalyzer, Judge Doherty is charged with operating a vehicle while under the influence of alcohol.
Give me my phone so I can make a phone call.
Okay. Your phone is in a puddle of vomit in your car, which is
I
on the side of...
get it.
Can I finish? Which is on the side of the road that you crashed into.
Yes.
The tow company is out there trying to get it out. However, it is extremely snowy and slippery out. They are not able to get the vehicle out so far. So your phone is off the table right now. We don't have access to it.
This case, 2019 TRC 600K, State of Ohio versus Rebecca Doherty.
5 days later, the judge finds herself on the opposite side of the bench.
Now, to the charge of operating a vehicle under the influence of alcohol and misdemeanor in the first degree, how do you plead?
Guilty.
I do believe that the defendant would like to make a brief statement to the court.
Your Honor, I do apologize to the court, to the residents of Portage County, to the Brimfield Police Department. I did make a serious error in judgment. I am humbled by this experience.
This is the first offense OVI, and I'm going to treat the case just like I would treat the next 99 OVI first offense.
Judge Doherty receives a fine of $1,075 and 180 days in jail, which the presiding judge reduces to $375 and 3 days in jail. Her driver's license is suspended for a year, and she's ordered to complete a driver's intervention program.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Doherty also received a public reprimand from the Ohio Supreme Court, but because her crime was a misdemeanor and not a felony, she was able to keep her job. Next, we go to the Clark County Superior Court in Vancouver, Washington, for the sentencing of Matthew Hastings. He's been convicted of 4 counts of attempted murder and 2 counts of second-degree assault. Hastings shot and seriously wounded Corporal Chris LeBlanc during a 20-hour standoff with Vancouver police. The trial judge is John Woolley, and the maximum sentence is 120 years behind bars. At first, things appear to be civil.
Mr. Hastings, is there anything you wish to say, sir?
No, Your Honor.
But then, things quickly take a turn.
Mr. Hastings, did you graduate from high school, sir?
No.
Okay, let me give you a little thumbnail sketch of the American system of government. Mr. Hastings, don't press your luck with me, son. Don't press your luck with me.
Or what? You gonna sentence me? Is that what you gonna do?
You know what, Mr. Hastings, I am.
Okay.
Let me tell you why.
I don't really want to care why. Just get on with
You shut your damn mouth, sir.
Oh, I'm not gonna shut my mouth.
Next time, I'm going to have you gagged.
You're gonna be gagged, huh?
You're right, I am.
I mean gagged.
Mr. Hastings, based upon your conduct in this court, your conduct in the community, I am accepting the state's recommendation.
Good. Thank you. I'll take another.
Mr. Hastings is in contempt of court at this point, Counselor. Ask you the attorneys back in chambers for a moment, please.
Perhaps with the judge out of the room, Hastings would cool off a bit. But he's not through, because he's just noticed a few of his arresting officers in the back of the courtroom. Now, they're in Hastings' crosshairs.
Piece of shit. You're a failure. And your little partner allegedly got shot.
A court officer steps over in case things escalate.
Oh, you wanted to convict me. Bitch. You'll want me out there on the streets.
Stacey,
After a few minutes, Judge Woolley returns to the courtroom.
for the record, Mr. Hastings, I see no reason not to stick with the decision I made.
Absolutely. I'm thankful for that, Your Honor. That's great.
You're wasting your time with me now, Mr. Hastings. I know how to handle a guy like you. The only thing I can say to you on behalf of all the citizens of this community, bye-bye.
Thank you. That's great. Is that it? 2 words? Bye-bye?
How to push my button, son? These police officers have been told by me that they're not to react.
Oh, really?
Mr. Buckley, you
want me to make this rap? Is that what you're saying?
Your Honor.
Is that what you want?
put Mr. Hastings back in his chair until we are concluded.
Or?
Hold on.
Don't call my bluff.
You're really helping your case in front of the Court of Appeals. They're going to see this entire record, sir.
Hey, they're going to see your entire record, too. They're going to see how you're running your mouth, Your Honor. Bye-bye. We know how to handle kids like you, son. Okay. Yeah, they're going to see that, too. Remember, you're on record just like me. Pops.
And believe it or not, on this issue, Hastings was right. After this incident and a few others like it, Judge Woolley was reprimanded for his conduct by a state commission. But that didn't change Hastings' fate. He's still got the maximum sentence and is currently serving 120 years in a state prison. Now to Rock Hill, South Carolina, where 31-year-old Eric Cobb is being led to his bond hearing in municipal court. Just days earlier, Cobb was arrested and charged with first-degree assault and battery after punching 65-year-old Odell Fields outside of a bar.
The defendant struck the victim one time in the face with a closed fist. The victim fell to the ground and became unresponsive.
This surveillance video, later introduced as evidence in court, shows the moment Cobb approached the man and sucker punched him from behind.
The victim was airlifted to CMC in Charlotte and was pronounced dead at CMC on May 11, 2014.
Cobb's single punch ended the man's life and elevated his charge to murder.
Mr. Cobb, in reference to this charge of murder, it's possible you're looking at death penalty or life in prison.
As the hearing comes to a close, Cobb decides to address someone else in the room, the victim's daughter.
I am extremely sorry what took place. I was trying to break up a confrontation between him and my cousin. I've never in my life been the same person to do anything like this. I was in the wrong place, wrong time. It was a confrontation and I was trying to defuse the situation. And I'm truly sorry. I really am. I swear to God, if I would give my life to have it back, I'm sorry.
Having just lost her own father, she still thinks about the impact these events will have on the defendant's children.
Can I just say something? I just wanted to know that you pray to God for forgiveness that it didn't work out, and I'll keep your kids in my prayers.
I'm sorry. I really am.
He pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter, and more details from that night are revealed at Cobb's sentencing hearing.
As soon as he sees him leaving a lighted area into the darkness, Mr. Cobb pounds his beer and gives chase. And took one punch. Now watch Mr. Cobb throw his arms up. Immediately after he had knocked him down, he threw his hands up a couple of times in victory. What he was saying at the time he was doing that was one mother punch, one punch, that's all it took.
Cobb's defense team also highlights that it was just one punch that would do unforeseen damage.
This is the first time that I've represented someone in a homicide case where one punch. Normally something like this would have been an assault case.
Before the judge hands down a sentence, the victim's widow shares her impact statement with the court.
Your Honor, my husband was a good man. We were married almost 44 years before this incident. My life will never be the same. On Mother's Day, you're all ready to turn off the life support. They operate on his brain to relieve pressure. They said whatever he was hit with is what killed him.
The easy thing for a judge to do is to always give the maximum sentence. That's the easy thing. Nothing I say, nothing I can do is going to bring Mr. Fields back. I have to balance vengeance, an eye for an eye, versus mercy and compassion. The charge of voluntary manslaughter. Sentence of the court is 15 years. Lucky.
The victim's family had hoped for the maximum of 30 years. They would go on to win a $1.8 million wrongful death suit against Cobb and the bar where the incident occurred. For our next story, we go to Van Buren, Arkansas. But we need to warn you, it contains some images that may be disturbing for some viewers. It's 3:41 p.m., and things are quiet inside the Crawford County Courthouse. The man you see walking up the lobby steps is 48-year-old James Palmer. What you don't see is Palmer concealing 2 handguns and a rifle. He's looking for Judge Gary Cottrell, who ruled against Palmer in a divorce and custody battle with his ex-wife. He pauses to check over his weapon. Palmer's just steps away from Cottrell's office. Thankfully, the judge is not in the office today, but 2 of his assistants are. That's Teresa Armour, who steps into the office where Vicki Jones sits behind the desk. Armour escapes, while Jones suffers a gunshot wound to her leg. Her life is spared when Palmer realizes Cottrell isn't there and leaves. Teresa Armour runs for her life towards the lobby stairs. She ducks into an office. Palmer's right behind her, fully loaded. But he chooses to head down the stairs toward the exit. By now, the rest of the office knows there's an active shooter in the building and have notified police. Inside the squad car en route to the scene is Van Buren police officer David Passon. That's Palmer exiting the courthouse. It looks like he's ditched the overcoat. Corporal Passon is headed straight for him. Palmer fires a series of shots at Passon, but the officer escapes his vehicle with only minor injuries. Several other officers arrive, and this small town turns into a scene out of the Wild West.
He's got a vest on. He's got a vest on. Shots fired, please. Shots fired. Shots fired.
Officers eventually hit Palmer, and you can see him fall to the ground. They move to surround the gunman, who later dies at the hospital. Inside the courthouse, EMTs are treating the gunshot wound to Vicki Jones's leg. And luckily, no one else was injured during the shootout. This disturbing incident leads to increased security measures at the court, including metal detectors and a police deputy at the front entrance.
Joining me now is Corporal David Passon from the Van Buren Police Department, who was driving the vehicle that was shot as he arrived at the courthouse. Thank you so much for joining us. That is incredible footage. What do you think when you look back on that?
How am I still alive? That was my first reaction. It was just, this is a miracle.
Take us back, if you will, to when you got the call that day.
Well, when I first got the call, I was told there was a fight in the courthouse. And that's all I knew when I hit lights and sirens trying to get through the traffic.
At what point did you realize that you were not responding just to a fight, but that you were dealing with an armed gunman?
I had an unmarked detective trying to tell me where the shooter was. And when he told me he's shooting you, and then I knew, my car was just getting riddled. All I knew was I had glass coming in on me. The noise was crazy. And I just thought to myself, somebody just tried to kill me, so I've got something I've got to do.
So how did you handle it?
You can see in the video, Trailblazer come driving beside me. My detective, he drove his car in between me and the shooter. He got out of his car, I got out of mine, and we all kind of teamed up behind my car to figure out how we were going to handle this situation.
So your car's been completely shot up. Were you injured at all?
I had a shrapnel injury in my right calf.
Well, Corporal Passon, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you.
That's all for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Cam.
You ready to take the plea?
I hope you die in prison as well.
I'm not a predator. I'm not a threat to any community.
We kick things off in Kent County, Michigan, for the sentencing of Abigail Simon. 2 years earlier, the then 33-year-old tutor was allegedly having a sexual affair with a 15-year-old student. The student claimed the affair was consensual, but after the boy's mother found a racy photo of Simon on her son's phone, she went to authorities. But Simon was charged with 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct and 1 count of accosting a minor for immoral purposes. Simon had multiple opportunities to plead guilty and go to jail for as little as 5 months. But she chose a jury trial, and if found guilty, she could spend up to 25 years in prison. At trial, Simon's attorney tried to portray his client as the victim. She took the stand and attempted to convince the jury that the 15-year-old was really the aggressor.
Crazy, and it's scary, and it happened. He doesn't care because he's above the law, and he was told it doesn't matter. He was told it wasn't his fault. He was told he was never going to get in trouble. Like, I really don't get it.
Simon also claimed the student wasn't truthful when he testified against her.
He controlled me. He's still controlling this. I'm sitting here because you let him come up here and lie under oath. You let him come up here and say anything you wanted him to say.
After 3 weeks of testimony and reviewing hundreds of texts between tutor and student, the jury returned with a verdict.
Madam Foreperson, if you would kindly stand, if you could read down each count.
Sitting behind Simon, anxiously awaiting the verdict, is her family.
We, the jury, on count 1, on the charge of criminal sexual conduct, first degree, we, the jury, find the defendant, Abigail Simon, guilty.
Simon was found guilty on 3 of the 5 counts against her. 2 months later at sentencing, the victim's mother delivers a statement to the judge in the hope that Simon will get the maximum sentence.
Abby took total advantage of a boy, and she used him to please herself. It was hard to comprehend what Abby wanted to teach him to do to satisfy her perverse desires.
Before receiving her sentence, a desperate Simon throws herself at the mercy of the court.
I'm so sorry for all of this. I just want to go. I don't want to climb in my mom's bed. I'm not a predator, and I'm not a threat to any community. I'm lost and I'm broken, and I don't know how to go on without my family. I'm asking you to send me home as soon as possible.
The now 35-year-old schoolteacher sentenced to between 8 and 25 years in a state penitentiary. She'll be eligible for parole when she's 43. Next, we go to Dillon, South Carolina for the trial of Damian Inman. The 22-year-old was charged with murder, kidnapping, and armed robbery, among other charges, in the death of 75-year-old Mary Stutz. Inman and 2 accomplices, his brother Lorenzo, 18, and friend John Henry Bridges, 15, allegedly kidnapped Stutz from her home, then put her in the trunk of her car and went for a joyride, all to allegedly impress a local gang. Stutz was shot twice and left on a dirt road. Inman was later seen driving the victim's car. He was arrested, tried, and convicted. The verdict, however, was overturned due to an error in jury selection. So Inman was tried a second time with the same result. Guilty on all charges. But as officers place him in cuffs, Inman punches a deputy. Then his sister jumps over a railing to try to help her brother. She was arrested for contempt of court. Then things got even uglier.
Oh my God!
Inman spits at Deputy Solicitor Kernard Redmond, as well as the Dillon County Sheriff. Inman's quickly removed, and the judge orders a recess. 15 minutes later, Inman returns, shackled, wearing a safety smock and spit shield. This time, there are no further disruptions, as Inman is sentenced to life in prison. Meanwhile, his 2 accomplices were also found guilty. His brother sentenced to life in prison, while Bridges received 40 years.
Look at me. Why am I not surprised?
Next, we're in San Diego, California, for the sentencing of John Gardner. The 31-year-old pled guilty to 2 counts of murder during the commission of rape of 2 teenage girls. Gardner abducted 14-year-old Amber Dubois as she walked to school. And a year later, 17-year-old Chelsea King while she was jogging in the park. Neither victim's body was initially found, but physical evidence recovered near where King was abducted
linked Gardner to the crime after his DNA came back as a match in the state's database of prior sexual offenders. The DNA evidence, however, was only enough to charge Gardner with King's murder, not Amber Dubois, which investigators suspected Gardner was also responsible for.
What did you plead? Guilty.
So in exchange for a guilty plea for both murders and for revealing the location of Dubois' body, prosecutors agreed not to pursue the death penalty. Now, as sentencing before the judge hands down his punishment, Gardner sits with his head slumped and eyes down as the victim's parents address him during their impact statements.
You've taken my daughter and my best friend. You have taken my youngest daughter's role model and her innocence. You have taken a bright, shining star from this community and our world away, and for what purpose? To serve your sick, twisted, perverted mind.
Now, with our last hope for justice, we depend on the prison community to slowly and painfully cause your remaining days on this earth to be a living nightmare.
John, since I learned of your arrest for Chelsea's murder, I refuse to speak your name. I have called you monster, sociopath, serial killer, animal. You are all of those things. But as I thought about what I was going to say today, I realized that names like monster and animal, in a perverse way, let you off the hook.
Chelsea King's mother then addresses the lasting impact Chelsea's murder has had on the victim's brother.
You've stolen from a magnificent 13-year-old boy, his magnificent sister, and his present best friend. That he should be deprived of a future without his sister is cause enough for you to burn in hell. Look at me. Why am I not surprised?
Despite an angry mother's prompting, Gardner keeps his head down. Next to take the podium is Candace Moncayo, a would-be victim who fought off a rape attempt by Gardner in the very same park where Chelsea King was abducted just a month later. Moncayo claimed a hard elbow to Gardner's nose stunned him long enough for her to escape. Ultimately, it's Moncayo's last question that gets the biggest reaction from Gardner.
And finally, to ask him how his nose is.
After showing little emotion during the hearing, that comment seems to provoke Gardner.
She did that for publicity.
And moments later, Judge David Danielson issues 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole for the murders of Amber Dubois and Chelsea King. Next, we head to bond court in Broward County, Florida. Judge John Hurley presiding. The defendant is Fenton Ross, who's charged with possession of Flakka, a synthetic drug. Hurley's about to release Ross on his own recognizance when the state objects and asks for a bond of $1,000. The reason? Ross is homeless and pretrial services will have a hard time keeping track. Ross is represented by public defender Dale Miller, who disagrees with the bond.
Judge, at this time I would object to the court putting the bond back. Being homeless should not be an impediment to being pretrial.
But Judge Hurley overrules and tries to move on. And that's when Miller speaks up.
Judge, since we're going to warehouse Mr. Ross for a while.
Judge Hurley takes exception to Miller's choice of words.
Judge, since we're going to warehouse Mr. Ross for a while, can we get a staff?
Hold on, sir. Hold on. You know what? Your unprofessionalism and your smart aleck, sir, don't even try. You need to pick up your professionalism. You're taking a shot at the court. It's unprofessional. It is really, sir, you do this quite often. The court's really tired of it. I've admonished many times. And you know you're taking a shot by saying warehousing. You need to pick up your game, for professionalism, sir. You don't need to editorialize. You don't need to give a shot like that to the court. I'm not inclined to hold you in contempt of court. That's not the way I do it. But let me just tell you, you need to pick your game up because your shots to this court really undermine everyone's view of how the court should be run. And you need to stop doing this. And I'm going to ask you to please, sir, take a pause today and think about this and knock it off. Thank you.
Judge.
But Miller decides not to back down and continues arguing.
Judge,
nothing more about that.
I am advocating zealously for my client.
You're advocating in an unprofessional way, and I'm not going to hear another word about it.
After the hearing, Judge Hurley perhaps had a change of heart because the $1,000 bond was eliminated and Ross sent to a drug treatment program. He's eventually released and ordered to pay a fine of $293. Next, we go to Memphis, Tennessee for the verdict in the case against Shelby Isaac. The 19-year-old's accused of first-degree murder in the death of Eddie Tate and his girlfriend Edwina Thomas, who was 8 weeks pregnant at the time. The alleged motive? A bad hair week. Nearly 2 years earlier, Isaac bought $250 worth of hair extensions from Tate. Apparently upset with the purchase, Isaac scheduled a second meeting to get her money back. And according to testimony of a witness who claimed to be there at the time, that's when she allegedly shot and killed the victims. But the defense pointed to the lack of physical evidence in the case.
When you follow the credible and unbiased evidence in this case, it does not lead you to Shelby Isaac.
After hearing all the evidence, the jury returned with a verdict.
Has the jury arrived at a verdict in this case? All 4 counts? Were they unanimous?
If Isaac is found guilty, she could spend the rest of her life in prison.
Ms. Isaac, please stand.
Judge James Lammy reads the verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of second-degree murder as included in count 1. Signed by the foreperson of the jury. Ms. Aldridge, is that your verdict? Ms. Foster, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Of second-degree murder as included in count 1. Signed by the foreperson of the jury.
Upon hearing the news, Isaac collapses to the floor. Meanwhile, the judge doesn't skip a beat as he individually polls the jurors and moves on to the next count.
Sir, is that your verdict? Man, is that your verdict? Man, is that your verdict?
As the court staff tends to Isaac, who remains on the floor, the judge continues to carry on with the business at hand.
Take your verdict, sir. Take your verdict, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. As to count 2 of the indictment, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of second-degree murder. Sir, is that your verdict? Your verdict, ma'am?
Yes.
Your verdict, ma'am?
Yes.
Your verdict? Your verdict? Your verdict, sir? Your verdict? Your verdict, sir? Your verdict. As to count 3, that was count 4, I'm sorry. In count 4, the criminally negligent homicide is included in count 4. Is that your verdict, ma'am?
After a few minutes, as the judge continues, Isaac lets out a scream and pleads for help. Isaac is convicted of 2 counts of second-degree murder, reckless homicide, and criminally negligent homicide of the unborn baby. She's sentenced to 30 years in a state penitentiary and won't be eligible for release until the year 2040, when she'll be 42 years old.
We know exactly why my family is dead. We know who did it.
Next, we go to Tampa, Florida, the sentencing of Cameron Herron. He's pled guilty to 2 charges of vehicular manslaughter. 3 years earlier, Herron, who was 18 at the time, was racing another teen, John Barronell, when he crashed his car into 25-year-old Jessica Rabinault, who was out walking with her 21-month-old baby, Lilia. Rabinault died at the scene, while baby Lilia
died the next day at the hospital. This was not Herron's first time street racing, and according to the computer system in his vehicle, on the day of the crash, he was driving 102 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone. Barano, who was racing Herron at the time of the accident, made a deal with the state. He pled guilty to 2 vehicular homicide charges and received a sentence of 6 years in prison, plus 15 years probation. Before Herron, who pled guilty to the same charges, learns if he'll get a similar sentence, witnesses take the stand to testify about the defendant's character.
Cameron has continued to show extreme remorse. He doesn't eat, he doesn't sleep, and I know he's going to spend the rest of his life carrying this memory.
The defendant then asked his attorney, John Fitzgibbons, to read a statement on his behalf.
I would like to apologize to the family that lost 2 beautiful souls. I know that nothing can be done to turn back the clock, but I will and would do anything in my power to fix it.
Next, it's the victims' family members who deliver statements, most notably David Rabinault, who lost both his wife and baby daughter.
It is critical for you to understand that you've created everlasting pain and depths of sorrow. Because of your existence, 2 beautiful, innocent lives were denied a full life. We know exactly why my family is dead. We know who did it, and we are still disgusted by this awful truth. The truth behind this is that you are privileged. You killed a mother and a daughter. You did.
Finally, Rabinault speaks directly to the judge, Christopher Nash.
Your Honor, I hate to beg, but I beg you for the ultimate sentence, which is 30 years in prison. 15 years for each count.
After listening to the powerful impact statements from families of both the defendant and the victims, the judge must make his ruling.
There's really nothing that the court can do that's capable of fixing the harm that has been caused to the victims in this case. So I'm bound by the law, and that'll run consecutive to count 1 for a total of 24 years Florida State Prison.
Herron is sentenced to a total of 24 years in prison. As the length of his sentence sinks in, bailiffs remove Herron from the court. Herron has appealed the sentence, but if the terms remain, he won't be released from prison until the year 2045, and he'll be 45 years old.
That's it for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching.